I've said many times over, when you analyze school budgets and you look at spending around 5% and sometimes less than 5% of the total budget is spent on classroom resources. That doesn't include IT, because IT is often kept separate, but then that tends not to be more than 4 or 5% either. When you consider that, of the budget, that's not a lot of money that's being spent on the classroom. What I would expect to see is that people will say that classroom resources is where we would like to spend. Actually, in the recent survey, I'm noting that there's a lot of people that are supporting the out of classroom activities, and I have to say that's near to my heart, in that I think, I've responded within it. There's many, some of the best systems around the world have mandatory out of classroom experiences. So, the Scandinavian UDA school, every child has to have 2 weeks outside school. Quite often those are done in downtime. Some are done during term time. But in the Far East, you'll see a lot of that as well, Australia, Singapore, where they're developing outdoor education systems. There's a lot of question around the kind of industrialization of, the industrial revolution period, where, children were sat at desks. It was more about the socialization and the impact of sitting in a box facing an adult, receiving all this knowledge. The world is a little bit different, and we need to, now we need to think that there are some other ways of doing things. I'm not suggesting that we should spend, whole periods of time out of the classroom, but I think there needs to be a level of that. And certainly the Forest School growth of primary education is really interesting to see that, but that's only one aspect of it. I would suggest that there is a context, some of the German influence of the technical schools, the growth of the UTCs, although the studio schools are not quite as prominent as they were at the beginning. There are other ways of doing school. I believe that every child should have an access to that. So, how do we see the money being spent growing opportunities to do some of these other things? It's not just about increasing travel costs. It's about looking at local solutions and local ways of doing things. But there are other ways of learning that move beyond a 100-meter square box with 30 desks in it and a whiteboard. And I think that's where we need to look at the opportunities of reorienting how we're spending our funds.